is the Nutrimedical Report Show with Dr. Bill Deagle and Tim Alexander, Lord Sterling. Dr. Bill will be right back.
You're welcome.
And I think I hear the good Dr. Bill right now, moving into his studio. You there, Dr. Bill?
Hey, we're all set.
Yeah,
Tim,
I just started without you.
Well, that's wonderful, Tim. So tell me what the latest news. What's the latest news on your blog today? Do you have
I haven't
Tuesday,
hit the update button yet. I'm running behind, but I've got a lot of things to put on it. Putkin has announced that they're adding over 40 ICBMs this year to boost their nuclear force. Now, keep in mind, most of these will. Probably all of them will have probably 10 hydrogen bombs each in a MIRV package.
You're talking about Britain. That's quite a bit of.
Talking about Russia,
weapons, isn't it?
Over 40 ICBMs. These are just added. Russia has about 4,500 warheads, and we want to and we have been picking a fight with her, which is beyond insane.
Well, Russia doesn't want. Listen, Russia does not want to fight with America.
No.
Russia, in fact, was part of the reason for the founding of America in the first place, and it's part of the reason why the British banks and the Rothschilds picked a fight to destroy the Tsarist Empire back over 100 years ago.
Yeah, well, the Civil War, they pulled our fat out of the fire. Also, the Tsar Alexander II at the time sent his fleet offshore of New York and offshore of California to protect us from the British fleet during the American Civil War. The Rothschilds cooked it all up, and they wanted two countries in a perpetual state of warfare so they could loan money to both. Lincoln refused. He issued the sovereign greenback, and Lincoln famously said, I have two enemies, the rebels in front of me and the bankers behind me, and of the two, the bankers are far more dangerous. Yes. Right. And then moving on, the United States, and another almost daily throwing down the gauntlet to Russia. We're going to send some F-22 stealth fighter jets to counter the Russian threat, and I put parentheses around that word. Right. You know, Obama is a tragic comedy.
The abomination.
Figure.
Yeah,
he really
more
is.
than that. You're being nice here. You're being nice,
we
Tim.
have allowed
He's the abomination
the
that
globalist
desolates.
and the extreme Zionists to control this country, to bribe and blackmail all of our congressmen and senators, to put their people in the White House, and they're driving us to economic disaster. The middle class is more dead than alive, and of course they're driving us to the Third World War, and it's just unacceptable. More and more people are waking up. It's kind of a battle to see are enough people going to wake up to change things before we enter into all-out Armageddon, or are we just going to lose it all? I'm sorry, I happen to think we probably will lose it all, but God knows I don't. And then going on in France, Le Pen has announced a so-called far-right bloc in the UE Parliament, which is opposed to the European Union. Of course, the European Union was established under the direction of the Rothschild Empire. It was written many years ago. I studied the constitutional documents in the forming of the EU, and it's very confusing by design. Most of the so-called laws, they're actually regulations, are made by bureaucrats who aren't even known to the public. Right. The EU Parliament is more symbolic than anything, and that's by design. And we're in an upside-down world. By the way, Russia has kicked off the Army 2015 Military Expo near Moscow. They are fielding now a new tank vehicle that uses ultra intense radiation to knock out missiles in I think it's a 15-kilometer area around it. So that's Russia is not a slouch, and neither is China when it comes to developing arms. We've gotten so corrupt. We have some really great secret technology, but we've gotten so corrupt that, you look at the F-35 in a all-out dogfight, a old MiG-21 from about 30-some years ago out dogfights it. It cost way over $100 million each. The only area in which there are 3 farms of the F-35, A, B, and C, the only one that actually is an improvement over existing planes is the vertical takeoff and landing, or short takeoff and landing variant that the Marine Corps has, and it's an improvement over the old Harrier.
Yeah, but do you know the reason why I think America's not doing that? Because behind the scenes, America has much more advanced weapons than Russia or China.
Well, that may be, but you know what? We can kill them 10 times and they can kill us 9 times.
Tim, let me finish.
Still dead.
Tim, let me finish my statement, okay? I took care of employees and teachers at the Air Force Academy. And what they told me is that at some point in the future, and I think we passed it, human beings cannot fly aircraft at the G-forces necessary to create dogfights or do the kind of weapons activations that are possible. So everything's going to move to what's called remote, robotically piloted by artificial intelligence and remotely controlled aircraft that literally do maneuvers at velocities that are impossible for human beings to tolerate. And although we have these I call white elephant aircraft like the F-22 Raptor and others that are built at ridiculous expenses, it's basically a political pork barrel. The real issue is behind the scenes we have some very nasty weapons that are far more advanced than our enemy, but we want to curry the enemy and tell them, hey, please attack us, please attack us. If you don't have the technology, we'll just transfer it to you through the state of It's a Real Hell, which is a pipeline. And I think people should understand that our world's being run by Satan. I mean, this is no joke. Yes. People say, well, that's a conspiracy theory. No. This is not even open to opinion there. If you're otherwise and you're an agnostic or you just don't believe in this, you're an idiot. You are a blithering idiot because you cannot see beyond the nature of the level of evil that's happening. It's not human. This is not a human level. Because even rich and powerful people that are just decent, they're going, we don't want to do that. Are you crazy? No, we're not going to do that. So they have to kind of organize it by stealth, like this stealth treaty that they just tried to shove through. They're still trying to shove through.
Well, they'll probably get it through, and it will reduce all kinds of things that the public is not aware of. For instance, Medicare for people 65 and older, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, and it's unbelievable. Everything in America is upside down. Everything's a scam. If you don't believe that,
that's because the public
God help you if you get sent to the hospital and they charge you $39 or $40 for an aspirin or a Tylenol, and that's only the beginning. The really big bills are just insane, and that's just one example.
80% of people that go bankrupt have insurance.
With a guy that travels to Europe a lot. And one of the things that we were talking about is the death of America.
Well, 80% of the people that go bankrupt in America go bankrupt because of a health cost. And 90% of those people that actually go bankrupt have insurance.
That's right.
So the insurance isn't enough. And people should understand this is all by design. I mean, I have designed a healthcare system where you don't buy insurance, you just prove you're a citizen. You pay the doctor an hourly wage and you don't transfer any information to Homeland Security or the Department of Health and Human Services or the state licensing authority. It's none of their damn business why you saw the doctor. All it needs to know is you were there, his time card punched in at X number of minutes, etc.
Well, the difference is they think they own us.
Well, they don't. And we're going to teach them a lesson here shortly. Shortly, we're going to teach them. And, Tim, let's look at the news items you have posted up today.
I haven't posted today yet. I've been busy all day, so I haven't hit the post button yet. But one that we were talking about on break here, Donald Trump has announced today that he's running for president. Now, he's teased about this several times, but today he really threw his hat into the ring. He also said, America's a dumping ground for everybody else's problems. He made jibes at Jeb Bush, Rick Perry, Rubino, and he's never been a hero of mine. He is outside of the box. There is something to be said for that. I think the fact that considering the criminal nature of the past presidencies, that the two leading contenders for the Democratic and Republican nominations are Hillary Rotten Clinton and Jeb Crime Family Bush. These people should be in prison, not running for the highest office in the land. But that shows there's an awful lot of dumb Americans, but also a lot of people are waking up. And I think with his $8.9 billion fortune, Trump doesn't have to go to Las Vegas and kneel before the criminal Zionist oligarchs there and promise to go jump into World War III just to make them happy. He's got the money. He can do it all with his own checkbook.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for that. I question how good a president the man would make, but this current system where you're looking at Clinton versus Bush, oh my Lord, or some of these other clowns who was it Rubio that said if you don't like war, you don't want to vote for me? I mean, for God's sakes.
Yeah, listen, the only one that I think, and he needs a choke chain on him too, is Rand Paul. His dealing with this trade treaty and his dealing with the other issues about the constitutional issues that are similar to his father. I really don't think that he's going to kiss the butt of the Israelis. They need to get control of the state of it's a real hell. And I think that what will happen is, it's good to see Trump come into the deal. I think what he'll do is he'll mainly shake it up, and he'll probably shake it up to the point where it might actually turn into election, and they'll just get rid of Hillary Clinton. I heard some rumors, pretty significantly documented ones, that behind the scenes there are elements in Obama's administration, including Valerie Jarrett, that wants to deep six Hillary Clinton and do a unconstitutional amendment through an executive order to extend the term of Obama's presidency so he can run a third term.
I think that would result in virtually a civil war. I mean, I think there should actually be that.
This month, by the way, Texas has to vote.
Really considerable violence, and I mean, from different states, I think states would declare.
Well, I think we need to have what I call a civil war, in a sense that Texas should leave the Union right now. That America should have not a constitutional convention, but a constitutional restoration meeting of all the state governors. And then we should basically read the Riot Act to the federal government and the Supreme Court, which is ripping apart marriage, ripping apart and pushing this gay agenda, ripping apart our military. We got to stop the pork barreling so we can afford to actually have a military force while we still have health care for everybody in America. We got to stop trade treaties that basically allow transnational corporations not to pay any tax, like General Electric, which is pulling out of Connecticut. At the same time, they give billions of dollars.
No tax, by the way.
Right, and by the way, the Federal Reserve doesn't pay tax, and it's a foreign corporation. And at the same time, we have situations where they say, Hillary Clinton say, you're going to take from the rich. You mean you take from the people who have a little bit and give it to the people who have almost nothing. And people like her and the international billionaires, she's got this starry-eyed look like, hey, I'm really on your side, and she's looking back and forth. I'm thinking, this is a snake. This is a woman who is the highest level dame inside masonry in the Western world, and the reason why she gets a pass from Pataki over at the State Department is because she's so damned evil and connected.
Well,
that's why there's one rule for the.
We're not going to reclaim America until we put a stake in the heart of the Federal Reserve System until we break apart the too big to fail banks and Wall Street firms and start sending people to prison for all the crap they've done over the last couple decades. Until we have a truth and justice type thing where we send people in the Bush administration to prison for 9/11, until we recognize that Israel is not our friend but is in fact our enemy, the enemy inside the gates, until we break apart the news media from the 6 conglomerates all run by hardcore Zionists, owned by globalists. Until we do these things, America's not going to survive. And part of the problem, Abe Lincoln summed it up perfectly. He said, you can fool all the people some of the time, and some of the people all the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. And this is the problem that America itself and its citizens faces, and the problem that the globalists face. They're shooting for this and trying to widen it, the stupid percentage of the population that automatically accepts whatever the ABC, NBC, Fox, etc. says. On the other hand, people like you and me and others in the alternative media are waking people up, and people are saying, this is just too lame. They tried.
Joel Skousen had a comment to that today. Tim, Joel had a comment exactly to that statement you made. He said 33% of the American population believes what we believe. They may not be activists yet, but they do not trust the government. They know the government did 9/11, Oklahoma City. The government did an illegal war in Iraq. They don't trust the government with things like Sandy Hook. Well, that is over 100 million people who basically said the government are their enemy. Now, when they did 9/11, they were so sloppy. And again, remember, there's a lot of COINTELPRO out there trying to spin it and saying that they did direct energy weapons and so on. Hogwash. I'm a top expert in nuclear physics and radiotoxicology, and I presented their data from the U.S. Geological in 2007.
I read a report. You're completely right. Dr. Bill, you've said this 1,000 times. You know exactly
and I want people
to
understand this. The next thing, and I know Joel says that he doesn't think they're going to do major terrorism. I'm virtually certain that before Obama leaves office, he will do a terrorist activity to try to create martial law so he doesn't have to leave office. I'm virtually certain
that would be over the top. That would be over the top.
They're going to do over the top. Listen, you got to understand, these people are satanically energized. They don't even have the respect to lie well. So even their lies don't even have a shadow of good acting and good presentation.
They used an empty school a week and a half before Christmas a couple years ago, Sandy Hook, and claimed that a whole room full of kindergartners were slaughtered. I mean, that was a classic example. They thought they were going to get our guns, and
they don't care.
People went out and bought guns as fast as they could.
Right, because they know that if the government pulls anything off, we're in civil war immediately.
Hi, this is
Tim. This is people need to get this. One of the words I like to use, because I'm like half a lawyer, is the word opine. When you opine something in court, or you're giving rules of evidence in a deposition, you have to have evidence behind what you say. And when you do that every day, and the problem is you're not speculating. Now, we do have contacts. I have contacts. You do. I have contacts inside Homeland Security, the Pentagon, and other agencies. We have people who have had experience. I've had experience inside the government, and it correlates exactly with other people's experience. So when you have first-hand evidence, it's not open to people's opinion. It just is. It's an is thing. Just like the true historical documents of what happened in the Second World War, like we talked yesterday with Barry Chamish about the transfer agreement. He used Wikipedia and other references to say, this really did happen. Now, what I'm saying is, here's what I expect in the timeline, and I want you to criticize it, because I tell people, I want my abuse. I mean, by that I'm being sarcastic. I want an analysis to say why I'm wrong. Now, I presented this to Joel, and he thinks that we're only going to get to the point where we'll capitulate if we have a nuclear war. Nuclear war is not survivable. People need to get this, okay? Nuclear war is not survivable for 5 or 6 different reasons, but I'm just saying.
Well, and it won't only be nuclear. It'll be advanced biological. It'll be cellular.
Yeah, it'll be everything. It'll be exactly. So the number one nuclear war is weather weapons, geotectonic weapons, nuclear weapons, biological weapons, scalar weapons, drones, robot warriors, God knows what, whenever it happens. And if you think you're going to survive that, even if you go down for a year like in the Terra Vivos bunkers, when you come up, you'll wish you were dead, because there won't be anything to come up to.
And that's assuming you survive in a bunker, because the earthquake-type activity is apt to crush the bunkers. I mean, interestingly, you and I have talked about this many times, and I've finally come around to the conclusion. You know what? I think Dr. Bill is right on this dwarf star, the destroyer. I'm seeing evidence that from the sun and from volcanic activity and earthquake activity that is beyond anything that HAARP-type technology is creating. I'm seeing
it's not something that we're doing
that
ourselves.
Indicates that there is something affecting the gravitational waves that's affecting this planet and in big time.
Well, in fact, part of the reason why they're trying to control the weather is because the weather's being messed up with by the sun going crazy and by these gravity waves coming in from this deep space object.
Yeah, but also they're trying to control the weather because they're hateful, they're demonic. Look what they're doing to California.
That's true, too, but what I'm trying to say is...
We get most of our vegetables from California. California is and that immediate area, is a fantastic area for growing crops. They're not getting any rain. You know, I mean, all the reservoirs are running dry.
Tim,
Vegas, what are they going to do?
Update. We're getting rain at least 1 or 2 days a week now for the last 5-6 weeks. And we're constantly criticizing them because we know they're messing with the weather. But there is that side to it, that they're trying to create drought and so on, which is why Sao Paulo, Brazil, the largest city in the southern hemisphere, is not going to have a catastrophe. It's in catastrophe. Now, it's not a future, this might happen, I'm going to prophesy.
Brazil is also one of the BRIC countries. You think that's an accident?
No, not an accident. Now, here's what I expect to happen, and this is the timeline. And this is not a prophecy, just as my analysis, amalgamating your reports, every other report, everything I've seen, and a lot of prayer. Greece is not going to make its payments in July. Okay? Greece is going to make deals.
Let me interrupt you for a quick second. Actually, it's happening right now. The Greek Prime Minister is flying to Moscow to meet with Putin. This weekend is the big deciding thing for the EU. Basically, all talks with Greece, with the IMF and the EU and the European Central Bank have collapsed. The more radical part of the Greek government, the leftists that took control, are now taking the reins back, and they're looking for an Iceland solution. I don't know whether they're going to get it, but quite frankly, I think Greece should have told the IMF to go to hell a long time ago, and they should have put out arrest warrants for a lot of the Goldman Sachs bankers that bribed their politicians and loaded all this debt. Many of these countries, the bankers move in and they wave millions and millions of dollars around to the members of parliament, and sure, they sign on. Then all of a sudden, the people are left holding the bag, and that's what happened in Greece. And it's what's happening in America. I mean, our debt load is astronomical, and under our great commander-in-chief, teleprompter reader-in-chief, it has just quadrupled. I mean, it's nuts.
So let me hit the bullet points.
We need to arrest these people. We need to put... go ahead, I'm sorry.
Tim, what I wanted to do is I want to hit the bullet points, and then I want you to kind of comment after.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Number one, Greece is going to capitulate. Yeah, Greece is going to crash. European Central Bank is going to crash. Middle East is blowing up. We bombed with 2 nuclear weapons through the Israelis, neutron weapons to the Houthi rebels. Iran is now intercepting all traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. We have the situation blowing up to the point where Israel, though they have factors like their Baghdadi, who's actually an Israeli, and the Turkish that are acting as a proxy in the Arab Emirates as a proxy of us, giving supplies to the ISIS
but the Turkish president lost his majority in parliament. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Right. So what's going to happen?
His days are numbered.
So I expect, number one, I expect this fall not a collapse, but a major correction of the world economy. I expect this fall a major war in the Middle East to really get out of control. A lot of dead, a lot of violence, and basically a call on the red phone, because this idiot Obama has even stopped phone call direct contact with the Russian government. Though you don't do that unless you want to have an accidental launch on command. So Obama is such an evil bastard, and that's his title, the abomination that desolates. He won't even have a civil conversation with Putin. And that puts us all in extreme danger. And the Russians don't want to nuke us. They have nuclear weapons because they want one thing. You know, I try to teach women and men this in a marriage. Women want stability, and they want loyalty, and they call it love. And men want love, but really what they want is respect. And when you get world leaders like Putin, he just wants respect. He wants them to respect the nation and the national boundaries and the history of the Russian people and their satellite nations. And the fact is, I never thought the Soviet Empire went away. I think we try to pretend it's gone away, but the fact is Russia's just reacquiring territory that has been in their sphere of influence for 1,000 years.
In some cases for 500 years, long before the Soviet Empire, the Caucasus.
Right. So my point is, we have a kind of a bully attitude against nations that aren't going to put up with it anymore, and they don't want a war. For example, if you talk to people in China, they want to do business with us. They want to sell products. They want to buy our stuff. They want their young daughter, their son, to fly and go to the UCLA and then maybe find a girlfriend there and get married and bring their kids back to Beijing. They do not want to bomb us, and we shouldn't want to bomb them. What we need to start understanding is, it's like Joseph's prophecy of the coat of many colors. We're not going to have a safe world unless we respect everybody in every nation and have strong independent nations, as it says in the prophecies. They come down to Israel after the return of Yeshua, but he won't return until he sees the spirit of people take control of our world. We are the salt and light. We should be taking control of the political system. We are the media now. We're not the alternative media. People use that term alternative. No. We're the media. They are just a bunch of fools lying to the public and telling them blather.
Yeah, and you know their viewership is down, down, down.
Right, and
because they lie all the time, and it's becoming increasingly transparent.
Well, the public respects us. They know that us citizen journalists are going to tell the truth. We've been through hell, we've been through death threats, we've been through all kinds of things, and we're not going to take it anymore, just like that movie Network. We're mad as hell, and we're not going to take it anymore, and if we have to die for this truth, we will. And welcome back. You can check out the links. We have the link to Your Business with 1s.blogspot.com with Tim. Tim, I tell people what God is and what we are. If we are His sons and servants and daughters, we hear and do His will, and we move forward in prayer. It's always sufficient to overpower the evil one and his minions. So even if we don't have full answers, we need to be in sackcloth and ashes now praying. We need to be serving God. And sometimes people will take the opinion, and I had an interesting email the other day. They took it the wrong way, which is bizarre, but it happens. Where people think that if you're competent, somehow they think you're arrogant because you say you know something which others don't, or you have a competency in an area which other people don't. They consider that arrogance when God said, don't hide your light under a bushel basket, show it to the world, but also give God the glory. So out there, if you think that we're arrogant when we tell you we know these things and we know a lot more to back it, and we're giving you a warning to be spiritually and physically prepared, if you disagree with us and you can give us a logical argument, not an ad hominem argument, but a logical argument, by all means call into the show, 800-259-5791. I can tell you, though, in 5 years, the last time I had somebody disagree with me, it was not a pretty sight. And people out there were saying, that's arrogant. I have the anger and the intellect of my ancestor Moses. And that anger is well justified, because I'm a servant and son of the Most High, and so are you if you're a follower of God and a daughter of the Most High God. If you are hearing His will and doing it, you're not going to sit by passively and let the government get away with this, or globalist Satanists. And again, remember, there's people out there that are rich and wealthy that aren't necessarily evil. People make the presumption that you're just the average middle-class person is a, quote, decent person. No, there's decent millionaires and billionaires that are completely freaked out by what's going on.
Absolutely.
So you need to be aware that you need to be aware of this, including military personnel, special forces, Delta, people inside different departments of the government. If it wasn't for the fact that they were decent people and believers and everything from the Marines to our military forces, believe me, we would have suffered judgment a long time ago.
Well, and you know, these people are waking up more and more. And for instance, I haven't posted my update on my blog yet today, but there's an article from ZeroHedge.com I'm going to put on, and it talks about all the lies from the federal government about employment and unemployment. And based on the government's figures that they put out, and not allowing them to get by with knocking 90 million people off, and et cetera, the rolls, what they're saying, and they admit that this is actually far too conservative in terms of reality. The reality is far worse than this. But what they're saying is the true employment rate is about 60%, and the unemployed and very marginally employed, like you're working 10 hours a week at $7 or $9 an hour, is really 40%. And ZeroHedge.com admits that it's actually far worse than this. But
in other words, it's like the 1920s
figures. These are Great Depression figures, and so much of the stuff that we talk about, the government, the crooks in Washington and in the White House, in Congress and the White House, they get by with this because the news media and people, many people are asleep at the wheel, but more and more people are waking up. And you know, when someone so blatantly lies to you about things that affect everybody's lives, and just gets in your face and lies and lies and lies, and insists, well, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're an idiot if you question the government, that's demonic. That's evil. And if you're a Christian, you have a duty to say, hold the phone, fella. That's a lie, and here's why it's a lie. And I don't appreciate you trying to cram your lies down my throat and insulting me and everybody else that has half a brain by calling us some sort of tin-headed conspiracy theorist when we can see, you know, what's right in front, the nose in front of her face. And this is a lot of what we're dealing with, you know, and we're headed into Armageddon. That's where we're headed right now. And
right. Well, it may be quicker. It's going to have birth pangs first, Tim.
Human being, regardless of who you are, where you're from, what you got, wants Armageddon.
Well, right now, I think that our timeline is, and I'm not going to let I've been watching the shows with Jonathan Kahn. I had on the program Bill Salas and Mark Bills. I call them the Three Amigos. And they're talking about all these things converging, but they won't make an exact statement that this is what's going to happen on such and such a date. They say the pattern says such and such, economic case, disaster on the 29th of Elul, etc. What I want people to understand is there's a lot of people that are prophecy students, but they're not prophets. A prophet only speaks about what they know absolutely God tells them to say, and not a scintillate more than that. What I can tell you, and I'm speaking now not just Dr. Bill Deagle, but Dr. Bill the prophet, I don't know. But I can tell you what I do know, that the partitioning of the state of Israel and the city of Jerusalem and the setting up of the blood sacrifice will occur simultaneous to a peace treaty after a period of great war. That great war is going to happen probably this summer. It means that there's going to be a peace treaty very shortly thereafter to stabilize things so we don't go to a third world war, because a third world war is not survivable. God said, I will cut those days short, lest no flesh would survive. I want people to understand this. I know I respect Joel Scows and others with their secure shelters and people with bunkers. World War III is not survivable. The human race will not exist if God allows World War III to occur. There may be some level of destruction. Most of it will actually be caused by things like the incoming dwarf star or meteor storms or extreme weather caused by the sun, etc. But a World War III scenario where the major nations are struck, there'll be maybe tiny pockets of population, but they'll be destroyed by the environmental catastrophes of a nuclear winter and all the other horrors of radiation everywhere. It's not survivable.
You're right. You know, even if you go to South America, to Australia, to parts of southern Africa, and have all the food and shelter, maybe you'll survive a year or a handful of years, but it won't be a very good survival, and it will eventually cap up. Remember, advanced biological warfare, as well as cellular warfare, and the nuclear radiation will spread throughout the world.
Well, there's a quote in the...
This is suicide.
There's a quote in the book of
Genesis.
Genesis.
It's what we're talking about.
Yeah, there's a quote in the book of Genesis that says, you know, they will escape the serpent to run into a bear, to run into a lion. In other words, you think you've escaped disaster to go to another disaster. The only refuge is God. It says in Psalm 23. That's why we walked in the valley of the shadow of death. Not when you die, but when you're born into this world. And Psalm 91.1 should be read at the moment of people's death, because you're under the wings of the Most High God. That became my favorite scripture when Colonel Lynn Wells showed it to me at NORAD, underground in NORAD's facilities, and he showed me areas of NORAD that no one else sees except if you're high security clearance. And I want people to understand this. When I'm speaking prophetically, I expect that during the term of Obama, or very shortly thereafter, they're going to have a peace treaty after a great war this summer or fall. I think that they have already talked about the fact they're going to get rid of cash, meaning they're going to get rid of physical cash in your pocket, so everything's in electronic systems. They want these peace treaties because they're going to make a proxy world government. The United Nations is not enough. They want treaties to control so our governments become vestigial. That's supposed to happen with this economic collapse that they've already engineered.
Well, to some extent, that's what TPP is.
Right. Exactly. So if you see the actual, if you want to call Act 1, Scene 1 of this play, of this drama, I think that we are going to what I call the full force birth pangs. And the very first one, and I can say this prophetically, is the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. I don't know when it's going to happen, whether it's now or 2 years or 10 years. Whenever the Strait of Hormuz closes, things are going to get nuts. Because the world economy and the petrodollar will collapse. We'll be on the brink of war with Russia. There has to be a treaty, or there'll be a nuclear, biological, chemical, scalar, and geotectonic exchange that'll wreck the planet and kill everybody on it. And if you think you're going to escape this, if you're in a bunker, or if you're in an underground city, or you move to the southern hemisphere, you'll just change the chiseling dates on your tombstone if there is anybody around to chisel. So,
that's a good
I don't
analogy.
think there'll be... Yeah, there won't be anybody left to chisel your dates.
I try every time when I'm on to end with get right with God. And I mean, really, it's that important, get right with God, because we are in some really...
I got to get us through it. I believe that, as my ancestor Moses said, with God, with what we know and what God is, it's always sufficient.
Well, get right with God, folks.
Stay tuned. We'll be back on in a minute with Tim. And coming up tomorrow, Harley Schlanger.